We are concluding chapter 13 in Tanya. And chapter 12 and chapter 13 is where we learned a lot about the Beinoni. We got our definition of the Beinoni. And we are going to conclude now on a final note. Chapter 14 already, Tanya, we see we are moving on. We're moving onward. Let us recap briefly what the Beinoni is, and then we'll get into tonight's very, very interesting, fascinating topic. Very briefly, if I have to capture very briefly what a Beinoni is the person who, on the one hand, has absolute self-mastery. They never allow the animal soul, the temptations, the weaknesses, to ever manifest and become an active, conscious thing that we do or speak about or think about in our life. But at the same time, they still have that animal soul. They do not succeed in getting rid of the animal soul. They never affect the animal soul. They never compromise the existence and the power of the animal soul. And in fact, the animal soul is only getting stronger, as we learned with time, right? So we are destined to live 120 years on this earth, and we never win the war. The animal soul is there. Every single day is a struggle. And there's no smooth sailing. The Beinoni is destined to a life where they are moody, where they're in flux. The Tanya said that in the morning, you wake up, you go daven, right, David? We're just talking about davening. And getting yourself inspired is a very, very integral part of the Beinoni's lifestyle, of his daily schedule. A Beinoni has to wake up and be inspired. If you're not inspired, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. But then what happens? That inspiration doesn't last. An hour later, the inspiration withers away. And an hour ago, he was all emotional and passionate and loving. He loved God. To the point that love overwhelmed the animal soul. But now, an hour later, that love is gone. And you know what he's loving? He's loving the temptations of the world. So, a Beinoni is somebody who is always in flux. He's changing. He's moody. He's not smooth sailing. A tzaddik is very smooth. A tzaddik has a beautiful, consistent life. He loves God. He doesn't love anything else. That's his focus. His whole life is consistent, is smooth. A Beinoni doesn't get that. And that brings us to the final point of this chapter, which is such a fascinating idea. The Alter Rebbe is here to answer the burning question of the Beinoni. So we are all aspiring Beinonis, and we have just learned our destiny, our fate that we are destined to remain a Beinoni our whole life, to live with this struggle, to live with this vacillation. Right? Is that the right word? Vacillating, changing, up and down. This is our life. And there's a burning question that the Alter Rebbe has to now address. Noah, how you doing?
Baruch Hashem. Hi, Rabbi. Thanks.
It's wonderful, wonderful seeing you here. That is wonderful. Okay. Glad that you're joining us. Okay. The Alter Rebbe now has a burning question. And it's such a fascinating question. I want to explore the question with you. Because the Alter Rebbe doesn't even make that big of a deal about the question. But I think it's a very big deal. You could learn so much just from the question, even before we get to the answer. The Beinoni is deeply bothered. Now that the Beinoni learns what he is, what life's going to look like as a Beinoni, the burning question is, if that's my life, is my life true? Is my life authentic? Is my relationship with God authentic if I need to force it into being, if I need to force it into existence every single day? Is that called a real relationship? Is that called real spiritual living? If I need to compel it by force into existence every single day, is that called being spiritual? Is that called being a spiritual person? Or am I somewhat of a fraud? Is that truth? So on a basic level, let's say I tell myself, you know what, I want to be a sophisticated person. So I will say that I enjoy fine, dry wine. Right? I'll be a connoisseur. Am I getting the word right? Be a connoisseur. Okay. But let's say I don't really like wine. So I force myself to drink wine, okay? I go out to wine events, wine tastings, and I socialize with people because I want to consider myself part of the upper echelons of society that enjoy sipping wine. And then after a while, I just say, why am I doing this? I don't even like wine. So I have to convince myself that I do like wine. I don't like wine. So on a very simplistic level, maybe that's what the Beinoni is struggling with. I need to force myself into a zone every morning that I love God. You know what then happens an hour later? I forget about that love. It disappears. Now I start loving, and now I'm attracted to the very opposite stuff. My love of God is a distant memory. I have a lingering effect from it. But it's not something that's lasting. It's not something that's natural. Every day I need to force it into existence, and it fades away right after. So how real is it? This is the Beinoni's question. But it's a very deep question. I want to explore this with you. I really want to explore this with you. Let's back up for a moment. What is the definition of truth? In Hebrew, the word is emes. Emet. What is truth? What is truth? What do you say? If you had to define truth, what makes something true? What would make something not true? How do you define truth? What do you say? What would be the definition? Alex, go for it. Go for it. You got to unmute, Alex. But nothing political.
Certainty would be, in truth, if you take a triangle and calculate all the angles of triangle inside angles, and you come to 180 degrees, and you paint 5,000 triangles, and you come to conclusion that all of them, no matter how much you change angles, they're going to be still 180 degrees. That's truth. That's certainty.
Oh,
but a truth in whatever other sense you come up, you got to ask, what application are you looking to the truth?
So you're saying if something is provable, like triangles, you test the theory enough times, that it becomes something which is a certainty. It's a fact.
Bingo.
That's it. Okay, very
Rabbi,
good. Yeah, Joel, go ahead.
What God gave to us is the truth.
So you're giving me a religious argument. I just want to get a definition. Give me a work. What makes something truth, and when is something not truth?
When something truth is reality.
Truth is reality. So if we could prove that this is real, it's tangible, we could prove it in a lab, then it's real. Meaning if it exists, it's real. If it doesn't exist, it's not real. So if I tell you that it was raining today, so Alex is still in Florida, right? So you wouldn't know what it was just like in Michigan today. But you check. Did it rain in Michigan today? Okay, then it's true. If it didn't rain, which means it wasn't in existence, then it's a lie, then it's false. Right?
Maybe it rained in Bloomfield Hills, but didn't rain in Southfield.
There we go. So then, okay. So we could see if maybe I'm still saying the truth. Any other definitions? What do you say? Any other definitions? So most people think that there's truth and there's a lie, which means truth. If you want to talk about phenomena, about things that are, things that exist, the truth is here, and a lie means. Okay, let's not go there. Okay, very good. So that's very simple, right? Truth, something simply that exists. I think most people would agree with that. It's a very simple definition. Now let's talk about an emotion or an experience. If I say I love you, I tell somebody I love you. Is that true? Is that love true? Is it real? Yeah, if it's real, I feel it. If I feel inspired one day, is that inspiration real? What would you say? Why not? I feel inspired. But I'm not going to feel inspired tomorrow. Does that matter? Gail says no, meaning, okay, right now you have it. Right now it's real.
It's subjective. Truth can be subjective. also.
Oh, so Joel's saying that on some level, at a certain point, you can say maybe truth is subjective, but we usually tend to think that truth is not that way. Truth is usually very objective. This is the truth. It's not an opinion. Truth is truth.
Okay. All right.
It's reality. But on the other hand, there is an idea of you have your truth, there's my truth. So truth is a very funny thing. It's a very funny thing, and even in the world of philosophy, you could really quibble about. There's different types of truths and different types of definitions for truth. But what does the Torah say? There's a Hebrew word, emes, truth. What makes something truth according to Judaism? Judaism has a very interesting definition for truth. The Torah's definition for truth is, just because it's not a lie doesn't mean it's truth. Just because it's not an illusion doesn't mean it's truth. Usually we tend to think that as long as it's not a lie, as long as it's not an illusion, it's truth. It's truth. So a magic trick is not true. Why? Because it's an illusion. So it's either or. Either it's a lie, either it's deceit, either it's an illusion, or it's truth. Comes along the Torah says, no. Just because it's not a lie doesn't mean it's true. True is a very high level. There's a very high standard for truth. What is truth? Truth is actually, the definition for truth is embedded in the Hebrew word for truth, for emes. How do you spell true in Hebrew? Emes. Aleph, Mem, Taf. 3 Hebrew letters. Aleph, Mem, Taf. Aleph is the first Hebrew letter in the alphabet. Mem is the exact middle letter in the alphabet. Taf is the final letter in the alphabet. So what is truth? Truth is something that remains true, remains in existence, doesn't lose its integrity, its applicability at any point of the continuum. This is true no matter the time, no matter the place, no matter the person, no matter the circumstance. That's truth according to Judaism. So Judaism says, you want to know what truth is? Truth is something that is not circumstantial. The circumstances doesn't dictate if it will be there. It is. It is truth. That is a Jewish definition. And Torah says like this: something that is, but will soon not be, is not called true, or truth, or emes. Even if it exists right now, it's not the truth. Which is a very weird thing. Here's a cup. I could recycle this cup. I could destroy this cup. So according to the Jewish definition, this cup is not truth. But it exists. Doesn't matter. Just because it exists for a certain point in history, doesn't matter. It's not real truth. The definition of truth in Judaism, this is something that Judaism is adamant about. Truth is only something that is consistent, eternal, an actual truth, an eternal truth. I want to get to a moment why this is the case. But I want to give you an example that shows you the difference between this. What's true love? I truly love you. Someone tells their beloved, I love you. What is the litmus test for true love? Most people would say, how passionate is it? Do you love them a little bit or do you love them a lot? How strong do you feel the love? Somebody says, I love you a little bit. Okay. Somebody says, I love you. I'm just, my heart is exploding. That's how much I love you. I can't bear the thought of not being together with you. It's such a passionate love. Most people say, what's true love? How strong is it? How passionate is it? How overwhelming is it? You know what Judaism says? You're looking in one moment of time, you're looking at how strong it looks like right now, and you're saying, that's strong love. We all know there could be very passionate love, very, very passionate love. And what happens tomorrow? What happens in 2 weeks? That love could come and go. So Judaism says, no. True love actually has nothing to do with intensity. True love has to do with consistency. Is this lasting? Is this lasting even changes in circumstance? Oh, that's real. How passionate or dispassionate, that could all be an illusion. That could all be circumstantial. Unfortunately, in today's society, we see this quite clearly. What's true love? Some people will experience very overwhelming love, intense love, but it's not emes. It's not a true love. It's not truth. So that is that's the Jewish definition of truth. Truth, you can only say that something is truth if it is all-pervading, consistent. You can never find a time or a place or an experience or a circumstance where this truth doesn't remain the truth. An all-pervading truth. That's the definition. If it's not this, it's considered an untruth, a lie, a deception. It's not true. Which means we're not saying it doesn't exist. There is a place between a total lie and truth. This cup exists, but according to Torah, it's not real truth. This world that we live in, is this world true? Of course it's true. We're living in this world. This is reality. You know what the Torah says about the world? The Torah, in Kabbalah, the key word for our world is called Alma de Shikra, the world of lies. So one way to interpret that is that it's a world that is conducive for a lot of deception and lying and cheating. But it actually means the world itself is a lie. The world itself is a world of untruth. You know why? Because the world is not permanent. Nothing in this world is permanent. Or in other words, is your life real? Your physical life is not emes. It's not truth. You know why? Because after 120 years, we all know we hit the dust. And you return to dust, right? We all decompose. So is our physical life truth? It's not. So this gives us a very deep understanding of truth and of this a very high bar, very high standard for pursuit of truth. Right? Today there's this idea, everyone's looking for truth. People, it's part of human nature, we want truth. So what are you looking for? Torah gives a very high standard. But we have this question, why does Torah have this ridiculously high standard? Truth has to be something that will never, ever, ever fade away. Why? Right now it's here. Right now it's working. Why would you call this not truth? So we have this question. So let me give you a. So I'll share this with you. I'll explain this more by sharing with you a teaching of the Mishnah. And this is really where we have the source for this Jewish understanding of truth. There's a law in the Mishnah, it's a tractate Peah, regarding the laws of spiritual purity and impurity. These are laws we don't practice today. Jewish law says that we don't practice them if we don't have a holy temple standing. But God willing, we will return to the land of Israel with our righteous Mashiach, and we will enter into the Messianic era, and we will have a third holy temple in Jerusalem, and then we will renew and go back to this area of Jewish law, the laws of purity and impurity. And part of the laws of purifying somebody who has become impure is that there's a whole formula. There's a mitzvah of how to make somebody pure once they're impure. Specifically, once they become impure from coming into contact with a corpse, with a dead body, which all of us, of course, have come in contact and have that level of impurity. So the Torah says like this. The Mishnah says like this. One of the things that you need to purify somebody, part of the mixture is water. But it can't just be tap water. It needs to be living water, fresh water. So it can't be water that comes from, it can't be stagnant water. It can't be water that's just sitting in a lake. It needs to be living water, flowing from the source. So a fresh stream of water, or water from the ocean, a natural source of water, not just water that's just sitting around. It needs to come from a living space. But then the Mishnah tells us something very fascinating. Outside of Jerusalem, there's a stream of water, and it looked like fresh water. It looked like a fresh source of water because it would stream. But once every 7 years, the riverbed would dry up. Only once every 7 years. But the other 7 years, water is flowing. It looks like living waters. Says the Mishnah that water is disqualified. You're not allowed to use that water. It is not water that fits the requirements for the mitzvah. And the Mishnah uses very interesting language. The Mishnah says these are waters that are called mayim hamechazvin. They are deceitful waters. They are deceiving you. You think that this water is flowing. It's really not. It's a weird thing. Water's flowing here for 7 years. Once every 7 years it stops. And even when there's water flowing, you're not allowed to use it. Why not? Because it's not truth. If it was really living waters, it would never stop. The fact that there's even a break one moment means it's not real. But why the ridiculous standard? This is the explanation. This is the depth of the idea. A true existence, a truth is something that does not come into being circumstantially. If this can only be here because it's being compelled by outside forces, then it's not really here. It's only here because something is forcing it to be here. But the moment that outside force stops, it's not here anymore. So that is the Jewish definition. Truth has to be something which is independent, which is actually real, not because the circumstances are allowing it to be real, but because it simply is. It is. Nothing is causing it to be here. So, think about this stream outside of Jerusalem. It's flowing with water. But let me ask you a question. Does this crevice of earth actually have water? The answer is no. The proof is it dries up. So you know where this water is coming from? The water is coming from, I guess, somewhere in the hills of Judea. The snow melts, so the snow melts, the water streams down, and it ends up in this crevice. But this crevice doesn't own this water. It's circumstantial. The fact that it dries up shows you that this is not really a source of water. Don't use this water even when there's water there. In other words, the water's there. Is the water there? The water's there. But this river doesn't own this water. It's not real. It's not truth. Really, this is dry land. Real truth has to be something that is not defined and not changed based on circumstances. If not, it does not have the Jewish seal of truth. By the way, I don't want to get into this, but this is one of the reasons why one of the foundations of Jewish belief is that the Torah cannot change. The Torah is immutable, unamendable. Now people say, why are you so hooked up that you can't change the Torah? What's the big deal? Change the Torah. We all know the times are changing. We all know that circumstances change. Change the Torah. A 3,300-year-old Torah, you're not allowed to change it? Why not? People wonder this. You think God's going to get that offended if we take a vote and we decide that it's time to amend or change? appeal, a certain law or a certain detail or a certain belief? And the answer is it's not about changing something. It's fundamental. Is the Torah truth or is it not truth? Is it only true if the circumstances allow it to be true, but then it's not going to apply in other circumstances? Then it's not true. Then it's the deception. What do we say when we say the blessing of the Torah? When we go up to get an aliyah, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emes. Thank you, God, for giving us the Torah of truth. If you change the Torah, that means that the Torah is circumstantial. In this circumstances, Torah works. In the other circumstances, Torah doesn't work. Ooh, that's not truth. Okay. So we're spending a lot of time talking over here about truth. Let's bring it down personal. The Alter Rebbe loved truth. The Alter Rebbe demanded truth. What does it mean to be truthful yourself? Don't say a lie. Yeah, that's the elementary, that's baseline saying the truth. But here's what being truthful really is. God is truth. God is the ultimate truth. God is the ultimate thing that is uncircumstantial. Why is God? Why is he in existence? Simply because he is. We are not truth. You know why we're here? Because our parents created us. And you know why we can exist? If we were left to our own devices, we would die. We are only able to be in existence because we have air to breathe, we have food. But in a second, all of our existence could unravel. So we are very circumstantial beings. We need the circumstances to allow us to be. God is the ultimate truth. Elokim emes. Hashem Elokim emes. God is truth. And therefore we should serve God with our truth. We should serve God truthfully, with integrity. Now, what does that mean to serve God truthfully? It means that our relationship with God should come from a place of truth. Now, what does it mean to serve God not from a place of truth? And what does it mean to serve God from a place of truth? What does it mean to be a spiritual person? What does it mean to live with your soul in a truthful way? And what does it mean to serve God in a non-truthful way? The Alter Rebbe, in 1798, maybe 1798, the Alter Rebbe was arrested by the Tsarist government of Russia on false allegations, and then he was freed after a few weeks. But it was a very serious deal. The false allegations, based on those allegations, he deserved the death penalty. So it was very, very severe. When he came out of prison, he wrote a letter to all of the Hasidim. And it begins with the words, he quotes the words from our forefather Jacob, Katointi mikol hachasari, from Abraham, Katointi mikol hachasadim umikol ha'emes. I am humbled, I feel small from all of your kindness and from all your truth. That's what Abraham tells God. And he speaks about the idea how we need to be humbled in the face of God's truth. And we need to serve God truthfully. This is the theme. It's printed later on in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe's great-grandson, his eventual successor, Rabbi Shmuel of Lubavitch, he said, my great-grandfather lost 50,000 followers because of that letter. It was too demanding. He demanded truth. That's hard. He demanded integrity. He didn't just demand a spiritual lifestyle. He demanded truth. So what does it mean to be truthful in the way we serve God? The ultimate idea is your relationship with God circumstantial? Or is your relationship with God real, coming from within? What's the difference? Here's the difference. What happens when you go to Israel, you go to the Kotel? What happens when you go to the Kotel? You get inspired. But we all know what happens the next day. What happens the next day? What happens the next week? What happens 2 weeks later? Where's that inspiration now? It's gone. So let's use the Jewish definition of truth. Were you really inspired? Was your inspiration truthful? Was it emes? What do you say? It wasn't. You want to know why? You weren't inspired. Something happened to you. The inspiration was forced upon you. You didn't inspire yourself. That inspiration didn't come from within. An outside force forced it upon you. I'll give you a little example. When you go to a wedding, what happens when you go to a wedding? At a wedding, you dance. According to Judaism, it's a mitzvah. You don't just dance because, that's just a cool thing to do at a wedding. You party. In Judaism, it's a mitzvah to bring joy to the chassan and to the kal, to the groom and the bride. So you dance. Now, so what do we do at weddings to get people in the mood of dancing? You hire a band. You can't just tell people to walk into a room. Okay, start dancing. There's no music, just start dancing. No one's going to dance. You got to get people in the mood. So the music got a good beat, got a good rhythm, got a good sound going. People, it moves people to want to dance. Now, if you would go over to somebody who's dancing away, and say, "Are you really happy? Are you really flowing with happiness that you just are dancing for joy?" That person would probably say, "Actually, I'm not really that happy right now, but there's a good environment, so I'm dancing." See, that's called a compelled emotion. You're not really happy. It's being forced upon you. So we need to have this atmosphere that could force you into being a mode to dance happily, to dance joyously. But if you would walk over to the father of the groom or the father of the bride or the mother of the groom or bride and say, "Are you really happy?" She would say, "I'm bursting with joy." If you would say, "Do you need music to dance right now?" She would say, "I don't need music. I can dance for joy with nothing, with nobody, with no atmosphere. The joy is real. It's coming from within. I don't need bells and whistles. I don't need gimmicks to get me to dance. This is my simcha." So how do you serve God? What's your relationship with God? What's your relationship with Judaism? Are you riding the wave of inspirations? We're forcing it. We are compelling things to happen to you. We are forcing inspirations and experiences upon you. That's one way to serve God. And you know what? It's easy. It works well. It works well. Ride the wave. Just go from inspiration to inspiration, like thrill seekers. Try to get yourself as high as possible on Judaism and on inspiration and ride those waves. And you should know that's a lot easier. The Alter Rebbe says, no! That is no way to serve God. God is true. You need to serve God with your truth. Make it real. That's demanding. That's why he lost so many people. The Alter Rebbe said, "I demand something real." In Yiddish, we say, Chabad mont pnimius. Chabad demands it to be internalized. It has to go in. It has to be real. It has to come from your own heart and soul. It has to be lasting. So the Alter Rebbe says, I don't care so much about the intensity of your relationship with God. Are you in love with God? I don't care how intense it is. But is it real? Your Judaism, is it real? The way you relate to God, is it real? Is it authentic? Is it coming from a deep place? Is it with integrity? That's very demanding. But here we get to the question. We finally could get to the question. That Beinoni is burning with this question. Alter Rebbe, you tell me that I need to recreate an emotional experience every day by davening. And that emotional experience dies after an hour. I'm right back to fighting my battles inside with my animal soul. Davening is over. The honeymoon's over. The Beinoni says, well, maybe my whole life is a lie. Maybe I don't have truth in my relationship with God. Because it keeps on fading away. It's not real. I'm forcing into existence an untenable reality. So the Beinoni is very bothered by this. Maybe I'm a good Jew. Maybe I'm serving God. Maybe I'm staying out of trouble. I look so beautiful, but there's lacking emes. There's no truth in my life. There's no truth in my Judaism. You understand the problem? This is a very deep problem. Can you imagine somebody being bothered by this? You don't do anything wrong. You're a Beinoni, for God's sake. You are beautiful, but you're still worried. But it's not emes. It's not truth. Most people would say, "What do you mean it's not truth? Who cares? It's working. The results are good." But the Alter Rebbe says, "No. We need to serve God with truth. God is truth. We need to meet God with our truth." So this is the Beinoni's burning question. Is there a truth in my divine service? Is there a truth in my Judaism? Is there a truth in my relationship with God? Or am I just compelling into reality something which is not really there, which means that my whole Judaism is not a truth? It's like building an ice castle. If you build a beautiful ice castle out of blocks of ice, is there a castle here? Yeah, of course there's a castle here. In an hour, is there going to be a castle here? No, it's going to turn into water. So if you put your ice castle in the freezer, you could have your ice castle in the freezer for 120 years. So you got an ice castle. But the real truth is this ice castle is being forced into existence. Really, it should be a pail of water. And you're consistently forcing it into existence. So according to the Jewish definition of truth, there's no real ice castle here. It's only circumstantially here. It's not here. The circumstances is making it be here. So, this is the question. Is the Beinoni's lifestyle true? Is there truth? Is there emes in the Beinoni's life? Dear friends, page 117. Let's read. We'll maybe go a few minutes over, but the introduction was the main point. How are we doing? Any questions? Or we're doing so far? This is deep. This is very deep stuff. Middle of page 117, part 4 is a Beinoni's spirituality, authentic or illusion. So the Alter says like this. Now, concerning the quality of the Beinoni's love during prayer, of which we have spoken about, which comes through a strengthening of the divine soul over the animal soul. Let's talk about this love. Let's talk about this emotion. So the Alter says like this. When compared with the level of tzaddikim, of the righteous, who serve God with absolute truth and authenticity, this type of love of the Beinoni cannot be called true service at all. If you compare the emotional life of the Beinoni to the emotional life of a tzaddik is real, it's authentic, it's lasting, it's not circumstantial. The tzaddik doesn't need inspirations. He's real, it's there. The Beinoni, the Alter Rebbe says if you compare it to a tzaddik, you can't call it true service. For after all, it dissipates and goes away after prayer. And if it doesn't last, then it cannot be called true. Why can't it be called true? As the verse states, the teaching from King Solomon in Proverbs, truthful speech lasts forever, but a false tongue lasts only for a moment. If something lasts only temporarily, it's false. Truth is defined by its ability to withstand change of circumstance. The Beinoni is somebody that his emotions are changing. It doesn't have that lasting power. See, Alter Rebbe says, 1 second. Seemingly, we can't call the Beinoni truth, which is a very big problem. So says the Alter Rebbe, nevertheless. This is a big idea. Nevertheless, this is only when we contrast the love of a Beinoni to that of a tzaddik. We're on the top of page 118. But relative to the level of Beinonim and what they are capable of achieving, this love of the Beinoni that later passes is called a complete and whole form of service, which is absolute truth for them. For each person according to his or her stage on the level of Beinonim. See, Alter Rebbe is introducing here a very interesting concept. The Alter Rebbe says truth exists on every level. There's a truth of a tzaddik, but then there's the truth of a Beinoni. And the truth of a Beinoni is real truth. Now, when you compare it to the truth of a tzaddik, you can't call it truth. But on its own level, the truth of a Beinoni, not compared to a tzaddik. The truth of a Beinoni is real truth. So we need to understand what the Alter Rebbe is saying over here. The Alter Rebbe is saying there's two. On the one hand, truth is true on every level, but truth on a lower level compared to the truth of a higher level is not so true anymore. But on its level, it's truth. That's a very deep idea. The Alter Rebbe is going to have to explain that to us. But this is what the Alter Rebbe says. And the Alter Rebbe now says very, very powerful words. It's the only time in Tanya that the Alter Rebbe speaks directly in the first person. The Alter Rebbe in general in Tanya speaks in third person. The Alter Rebbe never quotes himself. The Alter Rebbe never says, I, me. The Alter Rebbe is teaching ideas in the third person. The Alter Rebbe didn't even include his name on the cover page. The whole book is anonymous. The only time where the Alter Rebbe speaks about himself in the first person is right here. The Alter Rebbe says, let's read. And I also call their love that they experience during their prayers as legitimately on the level of truthful speech that lasts forever. I consider you true. The Beinoni's love and emotions die right after davening. How could it be truth? I say it's true. Why? Let's read. Why? Because their divine soul is always capable of returning and reawakening this love. Whenever she will intensify her efforts at the time of prayer every day, through the preparations that are appropriate for each soul according to its quality and level. Says the Alter Rebbe, on the one hand, your love dies. On the other hand, the Alter Rebbe says you could always recreate it. When you go to Israel, when you leave Israel, you're stuck. You don't have a Western Wall. Let's you get inspired with Shana Yom Kippur in the synagogue. But then Yom Kippur goes. It's over. Not coming back for another year. You're out of luck. The Alter Rebbe says the Beinoni could do this every single day. If you could do it every single day, that means you own it. That means it's real. That means it's not circumstantial. It's not being compelled upon you from the outside. It's coming from the inside. Very interesting idea. Obviously, you have to prepare. You have to get yourself in the right zone. Put on the right preparations. But you could do this every day, and that's real. And let's read the next paragraph. Then we'll take questions. Since the Beinoni is capable of bringing his potential love to actual expression at any time through proper preparation and prayer, therefore his love of God is considered true and constant. Okay, Noah, go ahead. No, you gotta unmute. There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Rabbi. Yeah, that's a huge idea. I mean, especially with your setup, with the whole idea of truth that's not contingent, or it's not. But at the same time, you had said that I don't know. So, I guess my question over there is, did he reach it? He says he can do it every day. He can always do it. But is that because he reached it once? Is there like a seal that was broken? Is it like getting back to Bechina? Do you see what I'm saying?
We talked about this earlier in Tanya.
Yeah.
You have to meditate. You have to get yourself in the zone. It takes work. If you could get yourself inspired every single day through your own effort, the Alter Rebbe says, even though it fades away afterwards, that's real.
Yeah.
Now, for a tzaddik, that would be child's play. For a tzaddik, that wouldn't do. But for a Beinoni, this is your truth, and it works, and it's good. I consider you truth. You are serving God with truth. So the Beinoni who's concerned, maybe I'm not bringing my truth to God's truth, to God who is true. Alter Rebbe says, no, it's true. But dear friends, we have a few minutes left. I want to conclude the chapter. The Alter Rebbe now brings us into the Kabbalah of truth. Now, the Kabbalah of truth should be another whole hour. We didn't even begin to explore the Kabbalah of truth. We merely touched upon the need for truth. But how does truth work? So the Alter Rebbe concludes the chapter with a very brief overview of what I call the Kabbalah of truth. And the reason why the Alter Rebbe has to go into the Kabbalah of truth is because the Alter Rebbe made a very funny statement. The Alter Rebbe said, on the one hand, truth is absolute. Either it's real or it's not real. Either it is actually in existence or it's circumstantial. But then the Alter Rebbe said, but on every level there's truth. Yeah, compared to the tzaddik, you're not true. But on your level, this is truth. So what does that mean that truth is objective and also subjective, based on the level at the same time? What does that mean? When we learn about truth from a Kabbalistic perspective, we're going to understand that. Truth has two qualities. Listen closely. Truth has two qualities. They seem contradictory, but actually they're not. But it seems like a paradox. On the one hand, truth is absolute. Truth is something that is detached from circumstances. So it's not like it could be true here, but it's not true there. Or it is true now, but it's not true later. It was true some time ago, not true now. No. Truth is absolute. It is. Simply is, not circumstantial. But at the same time, says the Alter Rebbe, truth is all-pervading. Truth can be found everywhere on every level. So every level has the truth of that level, even though there's a higher level truth. So it's both at the same time. Let's read and we'll understand maybe a little bit. The Kabbalah of truth, says the Alter Rebbe, because the quality of truth is the quality of Jacob. We have three forefathers. Each one of our forefathers are not just our patriarchs, but they are the providers of the qualities of the Jewish people. Jacob personified truth. He gave all of us truth. Truth is called, Jacob is called, the center rod of the tabernacle that runs from one end to the other. Okay, let me describe to you a little bit. In the Torah, we were given the mitzvah to build for God a tabernacle. And the Jews in the desert built a tabernacle. Now, the tabernacle had a sanctuary, had a hall. And it was a little room. It wasn't that big. And when they went to Jerusalem, they built a large holy temple, which was a much larger and elaborate version of the tabernacle in the desert. It was much larger. In the desert, the tabernacle hall was not that large. It was a 3-walled room, a bunch of beams. So it wasn't long walls, it was beams. How do you call it? A modular build, right? It was a modular tabernacle, a bunch of beams, and you put a bunch of beams next to each other, and then there were rods that would hold all the beams together to form one wall. So you have 3 walls. Each wall is made out of many beams, and you have 3 walls. Each wall was held up by 3 rods. A rod on the top, a rod on the bottom, and a rod in the middle. Now, basic physics, basic engineering. Each wall would have separate rods. So there was one rod for this wall, one rod for this wall, one rod for the back wall. But then, the rod that would go in the middle, there was literally a hole drilled through the center of each pillar. The rod that would go in the middle was only one rod. And God caused a miracle. That this one rod, you would put it in on one end of the wall, it would go in, and when it would hit the wall and the wall would turn, the rod would miraculously turn. So you have one rod, not 3 rods, one rod that went through the entire structure, all 3 walls of the tabernacle from beginning to end. And that middle rod represents Jacob. The top rod represents Abraham. The bottom rod represents Isaac. The middle rod that would go from end to end, that would attach, that would hold together the whole structure, that was Jacob. Why? Because that's truth. Truth is consistent from end to end, from top to bottom. The truth is there. Let's read. I want to read this paragraph over again. Let's read this paragraph over again. Because the quality of truth is the quality of Jacob. It is called the center rod of the tabernacle that runs from one end to the other, right? This is the verse from Exodus. It runs from one end to the other. Now, what does that represent? What is the significance of this? What is the symbolism of this? That the center rod that represents Jacob, that represents truth, is going from end to end. This is where you see the truth, the element of truth. Let's read. The hallmark of truth is its all-pervasiveness, that it runs from the highest levels and steps to the very lowest step. On each level and step, truth runs through the midpoint, the pivotal point of truth in that level. So the Alter Rebbe says there are so many different layers of spiritual reality. There's so many layers of we live in the physical reality. There's spiritual realities. There's infinite levels of reality. Every single level has a center point, which is its truth. And you can access that truth. So truth can be found on every single level of existence. Every single level of personal Judaism. You know, none of us are on the same level in Judaism. None of us are on the same level in our relationship with God. Every Jew's relationship with God is different and personal. So we could start comparing ourselves. I'm not serving God with truth. So that guy is, not me. Because I can't compare the way I serve God to the way he or she does. But what the Alter Rebbe says is no, truth is found on every level. And there's a center point, the very focal point, the pivotal point, the center point. On your level, that there's a truth there. And you could serve God from that truth. But then let's continue. But on the other hand, although there is a point of truth on every level, the Alter Rebbe says, okay, but it also comes back to bite you. Truth is an endless domain, and there is no limit to how high truth reaches. All the way up until the top, the very absolute truth. And the truth on all levels and steps below are as nothing relative to the truth on the levels and steps that are beyond them. So there's truth on every level. But when you compare the truth of a lower level to the truth of a higher level, the truth of the lower level is like nothing. So they're both true at the same time. Every level has a truth, and it is truth. But relative to the higher level, it's not true. But on that level, it is true. Okay, the final parentheses. The chapter concludes with this. As is known to those who know the esoteric knowledge, to those who study Kabbalah, right? Not like me and you. Okay. So that which is considered the level of head and brains of the lower levels is actually beneath that which is considered the heels and feet of the higher levels. The top of a lower level is actually lower than the lowest level of the higher level. As the statement of our rabbis in the Talmud, the feet of the angelic beings are equal to all of them. The feet of the level of the angels is higher than all of earth and all the heavens. So, what the Alter Rebbe is saying is that both are true at the same time. Every level of divine service, there's truth there. But compared to a higher level, yeah, maybe it's not so true. But they're both true at the same time. So says the Alter Rebbe, you can't be worried. Wherever you are, even if you're not on the high levels of serving God, you're not a tzaddik, there's a way that you could serve God with truth. You know, we say in the Shema prayer, we give our daily affirmation, our daily proclamation of our relationship with God, with Hashem. We say, V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, you shall love the Lord your God, b'chol levavecha, with all of your heart, u'v'chol nafshecha, with all your soul, u'v'chol me'odecha, and with all your might. Might is a bad translation. It really means with all of your infinity, with whatever you have and beyond. But it doesn't say serve God with all of the heart, with all of the soul. What does it say? Serve God with all of your heart. The way you serve God with all of your heart is not the same way I can serve God with all of my heart. It's very personal. There's a personal truth for your level. The Alter Rebbe says, and don't get intimidated that from the perspective of a tzaddik's level, your truth is nothing. No. B'chol levavecha, serve God with your heart, on your level. So both are true at the same time. Serve God with your truth on your level. You also have to know that there's higher levels, which would make your level of truth a little bit like nothing, but that's okay. And with that, we conclude, dear friends. Very interesting conclusion to the discussion of Beinoni. The element of truth, of authenticity, that the Alter Rebbe wants a Beinoni to know that your relationship with God, your holy spiritual life, is not a fraud. It is truth. And dear friends, with that we conclude. We conclude chapter 13. Next week we're on to chapter 14. And Tanya keeps on moving onward. And I want to wish you all a wonderful evening. We'll see you all next week.
That was a very deep subject tonight.
Very, yeah.
You did a wonderful job. Really wonderful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
All
Good night.
right.